This is the globally released Xiaomi Redmi Note 11, a value-based mid-range phone that has plenty of siblings with a similar name. It's easy to get confused, but we're here to straighten things out. I'm Will for GSM Arena, and this is our Redmi Note 11 review. There are a lot of Redmi Note 11 phones this year. You have the Chinese models, plus the global ones, split into 4G and 5G variants, and these include Pro models and an S model. And don't even get me started on the Pro Plus. Here we have the global vanilla Redmi Note 11. It's very similar to the Redmi Note 11S, which has the same build, but a different chipset and main camera. But one thing at a time. We'll come out with full reviews for most of these devices. The plain Redmi Note 11 is one of the lower tier models of the bunch. It's a budget-friendly mid-ranger that promises quite a bit of value. The phone has a slightly curved glass back with a smooth matte finish. The flat frame is made of plastic, but the phone feels overall pretty sturdy. And one thing I like is that the Note 11 is on the lighter side in spite of its large battery. Plus, the Redmi Note 11 has IP53 rated protection against dust and light splashes. On the front is the same screen that you'd find on the more pricey Redmi Note 11S, a 6.43-inch AMOLED with a 1080p resolution, Gorilla Glass 3 protection, and a fast 90Hz refresh rate. The fast refresh rate is an upgrade over last year's model, the Redmi Note 10. It makes swiping and scrolling smoother to the eye. It's not really adaptive to save energy, though certain apps will run at 60Hz rather than 90. The display looks nice, especially for a budget phone. Content looks sharp at over 400 ppi, and blacks are deep thanks to AMOLED technology. There's no HDR10 support, but colors can be accurate depending on the color profile and tweaks you choose in settings. The brightness of this panel is also excellent for this price range. We were able to measure 465 nits of max brightness with a manual slider, and this can boost to over 730 nits in auto mode when in bright sun. For audio, the Redmi Note 11 has a 3.5mm jack for headphones and a pair of stereo speakers. The speakers are well balanced and earned a loudness score of very good on our charts. The quality seems to be improved over last year's model too, with clearer and richer mids and better defined lows. The Redmi Note 11 has a side-mounted fingerprint reader built into the power button, and it's very fast and responsive to your touch. And storage is expandable on top of the 64 or 128 gigs built in. The interface of the new Redmi phones is Xiaomi's latest MIUI 13 running on top of Android 11. It's straightforward and actually quite similar to the previous version of MIUI. We have a dedicated video about MIUI 13 over Android 11 if you'd like to go more in depth about its functions and features. The global Redmi Note 11 runs on a Qualcomm Snapdragon 680 chipset, and it doesn't support 5G connectivity like you'd get on the Chinese model. Performance-wise, it's a bit of a mixed bag. On the one hand, the Redmi Note 11 CPU scores hold up pretty well compared to last year's model and other similarly priced phones. The Note 11 also does a great job with its thermal management. But when it comes to graphics performance, this phone sits at the bottom of the charts, so it's not a device you'd want to use for much gaming. Still, running your day-to-day tasks is no problem. The chipset is also power efficient, and the Redmi Note 11 has great battery life. With a 5000 mAh power pack, it was able to earn an endurance rating of 126 hours in our proprietary tests. The phone ships with a 33-watt adapter, and charging speed isn't blazing fast, but it's solid. We were able to charge the phone from 0 to 51% in half an hour. On to cameras. The Note 11 has a 50-megapixel main cam, which is paired with an 8-megapixel ultra-wide, a 2-megapixel macro cam, and a depth sensor. You don't get the high-res 108-megapixel main camera that you would on most other Redmi Note 11 series phones. Photos from the main cam come out at 12.5 megapixels by default, and they look decent for a budget device. There's a good amount of detail, true-to-life colors, contrast isn't bad, and the photos are sharp enough. These shots are a bit noisy though, particularly in the skies. Dynamic range isn't stellar, and the camera tends to underexpose. Portrait photos are decent too, in a similar fashion. We like the quality of the subject separation here. There's no telephoto zoom, but the digital zoom from the main cam is actually not too bad. The colors, exposure, and dynamic range are similar to the unzoomed photos, and these shots retain plenty of detail and don't look too soft. Photos from the ultra-wide cam are a bit of a letdown, even for a budget phone. The processing is quite aggressive, and fine detail looks blotchy, distorted, and even pixelated, especially with the objects that are further away. At least the exposure is a bit brighter than the main cams. Close-ups from the 2-megapixel macro cam are surprisingly usable. There's enough detail and colors look fine too. In low light, photos from the main cam are usable but unimpressive. You get a decent amount of detail and colors look true to life. There's plenty of noise though, and dynamic range is poor. Enabling night mode doesn't make a huge difference. It can brighten up the shots a bit, but it doesn't do much for the detail level and the noise. Nighttime photos from the ultra-wide cam are disappointing. They're quite soft and dark, and there's no night mode available to try and help things out. Selfies from the 13-megapixel front-facing cam are solid, with great detail and natural colors. For some reason, unlike last year's model, the Redmi Note 11 doesn't support 4K video recording, and this is the case for all of the global Redmi Note 11 variants. 1080p video from the main cam is still alright though. Detail is decent and there's very little noise. The ultra-wide's footage is also okay for this sort of camera, with enough detail and low noise. It struggles a bit more with dynamic range though. Both cameras also have a little bit of always-on electronic stabilization, which smooths out a bit of shakiness and panning. So that's the Xiaomi Redmi Note 11. You get a solid and splash-proof build, a nice 90Hz AMOLED screen, stereo speakers, and great battery life, all nice features to have on a budget device. The problem is you can find alternatives with a more powerful chipset and 4K video recording. You could even get those things from last year's Redmi Note 10. So unless you're really excited about this higher refresh rate screen, it's tough to recommend the Redmi Note 11 over the previous model. Thanks for watching guys, stay safe and see you on the next one.